and today we're talking about what I read in October. It is officially November, which is crazy because it means there's only 2 months left in 2015, but on top of that, that means it is time for another reading wrap-up. If you watched my October TBR video, then you know I had a pretty ambitious list of books to read this month, totaling out at 10. I wound up reading 9.5 out of those 10 books and 2 additional books that were not on my TBR, bringing the total to 11.5 books with a combined 3,565 pages and an average star rating of 4.2. So it was a pretty good month for reading. Up first, The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Lavender by Leslye Walton. I talked about this book in my September haul and my October TBR videos, and I've actually already done a full review on it, so all I'm gonna say is I loved this story. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of my favorites from the year by far. It is a magical realism story about a girl named Lavender who is born with wings, and if you want to hear more about the story itself and my thoughts on it, then you can check out my full review, which I will link in the description below. Up next, The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein. This is another book from my September haul and October TBR videos, and I also did a full review on this one as well. I also gave this book 5 out of 5 stars and absolutely adored every bit of it. The character development, the story, the writing, all of it was just beautiful and wonderful, and I highly, highly recommend this book. The book is narrated by a dog named Enzo, and as Enzo comes to the end of his life, he recounts his life that he lived with his owner, Danny, and the things that Danny, and by extension Enzo, experienced during their time together. Again, I already did a full review of this, which I will also link in the description below, so if you want to hear more about the plot and more thoughts, then you should definitely check that out. Up next, Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is the first book in the Lunar Chronicles series, which is a 4-book series of fairy tale retellings set in a futuristic post-World War IV society. This first book is a retelling of Cinderella, as you might expect, and Cinderella is a cyborg. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars because I really, really enjoyed the adaptation, and I'm really excited to see how the stories and the series progresses from here on out. I have already done a full video review on it, so if you want to hear more of my specific thoughts on this particular adaptation and the series as a whole, then you should check that out. I will link it in the description below. Up next, Simply Tuesday by Emily P. Freeman. This is one of 2 nonfiction books that I read this month. I actually started in the month of September and read it over about a 6-week period. The subtitle is Small Moment Living in a Fast-Paced World, and that really sums up what the book is about. Emily has this idea that Tuesday is the most ordinary day of the week, that Monday is Monday, and Wednesday is hump day, and Thursday is like a pre-Friday, and Friday is Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday are the weekend, and so Tuesday is just this normal, totally ordinary day with nothing special about it. And so much of our life is lived in those normal, ordinary, everyday moments. I really, really enjoyed this book. This is the second book of Emily's that I've read. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I think it's possible that I wound up reading the book too slow because by the time I finished it, I couldn't really remember a ton about the beginning of the book. So I think if I'd read it at a slightly quicker pace, maybe over 2 or 3 weeks instead of 6 weeks, and therefore remembered more about the beginning when I got to the end of it, that I possibly would have given it a higher rating, 4.5 or maybe even 5 stars, but I still really, really enjoyed this book and I highly recommend it. Up next, The Lost City of Faar by DJ MacHale. This is the second book in the Pendragon series, which is a series following a 14-year-old kid named Bobby Pendragon who is one day told by his uncle that he is a traveler, which means that he can travel through space and time to the various territories around the universe. In the first book in the series, Bobby learns that there's this evil dude named Saint Dane who's running around trying to topple the entire universe by setting all of the territories into chaos. So Bobby and his Uncle Press, along with the other travelers that they encounter, run around and follow Saint Dane and try to prevent him from destroying the universe. I definitely enjoyed this book more than I enjoyed the first one. The story I found a lot more intriguing. I really started to appreciate the character development, particularly of some of the new characters, a lot more in this book than I did in the first one. I did struggle with certain parts of this book, particularly the beginning. As you have in most series, DJ MacHale sort of has, a recap of, oh, so this is all the stuff that happened in the first book. We're going to bring you up to speed just in case you didn't read the first book. But because it's written in first-person perspective and it's Bobby writing all these things to his friends, it just, I don't know, it did not work for me. I almost DNF'd this book in the first like 20 to 30 pages because it was that rough, but I pushed through. I gave this book a 3.25 out of 5 stars, which I know is sort of a bizarre rating, but it was definitely better. It was a little better than 3 stars, but not quite up to like a 3.5 or a 4-star mark. But I am excited to see how the rest of the series continues to play out, and I will at the very least be picking up the 3rd book. Up next, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. So Anne Shirley is my absolute favorite character in all of literature. Anne is the most vivacious, precocious, imaginative, entertaining, hilarious character in all of literature, in my opinion, and I adore everything about her. If you are not at all familiar with the Anne of Green Gables series, it follows the story of Anne Shirley, a red-headed orphan who is taken into the home of a bachelor and bachelorette brother-sister couple. The home they live in is called Green Gables, and they live in the town of Avonlea on Prince Edward Island. And the whole series, which comprises a full 8 books, follows Anne's life. I loved this first book. It is near and dear to my heart for so many reasons, and it is probably my favorite of the series because Anne is at her most precocious and ridiculous and hilarious and imaginative in this book, and I just love her. I love everything about this story, and there were so many wonderful quotes from her that are just hilarious but also really sweet and profound, and I love L.M. Montgomery's writing style, the way she describes all the other characters. Her development is just, it's flawless. I love this book. If you didn't guess, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars because this book is just incredible. And if you have not experienced Anne Shirley yet, then you need to get this book right now. Like right now. Up next, The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. The story follows a woman named Rachel who takes the train to and from London every day. The train that she rides on stops at a certain house every single day that she's riding, and so she starts to observe the people in this house, and one day she witnesses something that concerns her, and then a few days later the woman that lives in that house winds up missing, and Rachel finds herself thrown into this whole situation of these other people's lives and everything that's happening, and yeah, I mean, you can infer what happens from there. The thing that makes this book in particular quite fascinating is that Rachel is an alcoholic, and so she is not the most reliable narrator in the world. The thing that I liked the most about this book was the plot itself. Maybe it's just because I'm out of practice and I haven't read any thriller mystery stuff in a while, but I didn't actually guess the killer until pretty late in the game. But other than that, I mean, the writing was not bad. Like, it wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't bad. But oh my gosh, none of the characters in this book are like the least bit likable. I just did not care about any of these characters, any of the narrators, any of the secondary characters. No one made me feel for them, and I really had no investment into how their lives turned out. And so I wound up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars because, like I said, the plot itself was pretty intriguing and the writing was actually pretty decent, but just epic fail on my emotions toward these characters that were in any way positive. Up next, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. So if you are not aware, Mockingjay Part 2, the final installment in the Hunger Games movies, comes out on November 20th, and typically before each movie has come out, I have reread this series just to refresh my memory and remind myself of the stories. I just really love this story. I love Katniss as a narrator. I think she's a really strong narrator, a strong woman, strong individual in this book at least, and I really love the other characters that Suzanne Collins writes into the story. I love Rue and Peeta and Gale and Haymitch and Effie, and I think she does an excellent job with character development. Basically, I just really love this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I will be sharing more of my thoughts on The Hunger Games in general as we get closer to the movie release. I have a few special videos planned, so be sure to watch out for those as we get closer to November 20th. Up next, A Wind in the Door by Madeleine L'Engle. This is the second book in the Time Quintet, the first one being A Wrinkle in Time, which I read last month. Guys, I had forgotten how fantastic the rest of this series is. Like, I've known how much I love A Wrinkle in Time forever and for always, but A Wind in the Door is just as wonderful, if not more wonderful, maybe even than A Wrinkle in Time, and I love the way Madeleine L'Engle writes her stories because like, just the way she writes them is hilarious to me. I love how she starts all of her books. I love the descriptions that she uses of characters and places and people and all these things, but the thing that I love the most about her stories is that they so exemplify all of these incredible themes and truths about life, and she just sort of like drops them into kids' stories, and it's just incredible to watch. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely adore everything about this series, and if you have never read The Time Quintet, then you absolutely, without a doubt, 100% must pick this book up as soon as possible. When I get closer to the end of this series, I will no doubt be doing a series recap, but if you guys would like to hear more of my individual thoughts on the specific books, please let me know and I can certainly get some videos on those done. Up next, The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis. This is the other nonfiction book that I read this month. It is very little, super, super tiny. The actual content of this book is only 81 pages long, but oh my goodness, this book is so freaking dense. In this particular book, Lewis goes about arguing for education and why education of our children is so important, and how if we are not careful with the way that we educate people, we can wind up with all sorts of awful and completely unintended consequences. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars because I really, really appreciate the message that Lewis is trying to get across in this book, but again, it was just so dense that it was really hard for me to grasp certain elements of it, and so for that reason I wasn't quite able to give it the full 5-star rating. And finally, The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. So I mentioned in my September haul video that I had picked up Throne of Glass, which is the first book in the Throne of Glass series. This is a set of 5 prequel novellas to the Throne of Glass series, and someone mentioned in the comments of my September haul video that I should read these before I read the series. I will actually have a full review of this set of novellas on the channel on Friday, so be sure to watch out for that video if you want to hear more of my thoughts. But I will just say for now, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, and the rating was kind of hard for me because I did enjoy the story, I like the character development, the world building is pretty solid, all that. But I think a big part of why I was only able to give this 3 out of 5 stars, which I do talk about in my review, is that I'm just not a novella person, I think, and particularly the way these novellas are written, I feel like it could have very easily been written as just one straight narrative and one book, and if she'd written it that way, I think I would have enjoyed this collection of stories better than I did. But that's all I'm going to say for now, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts and my ramblings about all the feelings this book gave me, because oh my gosh, the feelings, then you should check out the review on Friday. So I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I read 9.5 out of the 10 books in my October TBR. The book that I read the half of is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. So this is my current read at the moment. It is, you know, then by default going to be the first book on my November TBR, and I will no doubt be doing a full review of this book when I finish it because I'm only halfway through, but it's pretty fan-frickin-tastic. So there you have it, friends. Those are the 11.5 books that I read in the month of November. Like I said, it was a really great month for reading. I gave almost everything 4 or 5 stars, and I just really enjoyed pretty much all of the stories that I got to encounter this month. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have read any of the books that I talked about, please let me know in the comments. I would love to discuss them further with you. And I will see you next time. Bye!